Okay, okay, we live, we live. Uh, give it a second. Let people start to populate in. You got your hat. Okay. All right, Mars.
I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Um, trying to make sure that I see. Okay, it says we're live. 1 second, y'all. Okay, so we got people tuned in, so we can get started. All right. So, um, brought everybody here together for what I think is a very important conversation. The state of Black Chicago venues and nightlife. So my name is. I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Mike Orie. I am the event producer and founder of Afrotrak, as well as a DJ. We produce everything from concerts to brunch, all kind of entertainments, event, artist talks, discussions, and things like that. Based here in Chicago. I've had the pleasure of working with pretty much all of you in different capacities. Let me add McKinday hop back up. We got McKinday back in. So
Mhm.
today we're gonna touch on everything from. We're gonna touch on a lot of stuff, but I'm gonna let you all just kind of go one by one, introducing yourself, and if you can, when you're not talking, if you can please keep your microphone on mute. So I don't know if Ashton, you want to go next, or whoever wants to go next.
Okay, ladies first, I'll go next. My name is Ashton Hayes. I'm a key account manager for Remy Cointreau USA. So I have the pleasure of working with these gentlemen here. I work with about 50 accounts around Chicago, just pushing our sales and putting together marketing strategies and things to keep our products on top of mind.
All right, Sean, you want to go next?
All right, Sean Dies. I am co-owner of a couple of bars, Tantrum in the South Loop in Chicago, and Renaissance Bronzeville, and just recently opened up Jerk Chicken restaurant, Caribbean Jerk Joint. Been in the business, been promoting or marketing events since early 2000s. On Tantrum for about 12 years, Renaissance about 3.5 years, and just opened the restaurant 2 months ago.
Okay, okay. McKinday, you want to go next?
All right, so I just want to be real clear. I put on this Mars costume so that whoever is in these comments watching this, you don't have to post it in the comments. We got it. I look like Mars, okay? You got it. Here you go. Full situation. I'm not Mars. Yeah, so McKinday Adedapo, aka DJ Machete. I started 20 years ago as a DJ for MC in the city named Cubilla. Met a lot of people through that time and started working in music festivals. And when Promontory opened, I took advantage of the opportunity to go in and look for a full-time situation. So I'm currently the assistant talent buyer and production manager at Promontory, and I still moonlight as a DJ from time to time.
All right, Charles, say the words for last. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, my name is Charles Martin. I'm one of the co-founders and managing partners of Persona downtown Chicago. Also, 1/3 of Civilized Lifestyle. Um, yeah, that's who I am.
Cool, cool. Appreciate the introduction. You all obviously do a lot of similar things, but also, a lot of different roles in regards to the Chicago nightlife and entertainment scene. I just kind of want to start off with, I've seen a lot of people just having different conversations about things that are going on, and everybody's sort of coping with this differently. So I just kind of want to start off with just, mentally, where are you all at? How are you handling what's going on? What are you doing? I think I saw this meme that if you don't come out of this experience with a new skill, then you're not utilizing your time right. So I'm just kind of curious to know, just kind of starting off mentally, how you all handling everything. Um, what's going on with you personally, like any challenges you're facing, just particularly to you as an individual. And feel free to be like as candid as possible.
I guess I'll start. It's definitely frustrating as a community, and like I said, we're all kind of in we're in the same circle. We're all pretty much shut down right now, so everything is to a halt. Us at Persona and Civilized Lifestyle, we're looking at it as a restart button. I know everybody's not as fortunate to look at it that way, but we are looking at different ways to revamp, to come back stronger, different ideas, etc. We're all hoping that it don't last too long. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it really is just thinking of ways to come back differently. We don't know how this is going to impact the world as a whole. It could change everything. So it's, our Ron, Bobby, and myself, our daily conversations are, what do we do differently? Different scenarios. What if we can only let 75 people in here? How do we cope with that? How do we do that on the weekend? How do we do that on happy hours? So it is a little bit of a struggle, but I think we'll figure it out. And right now, that's our mindset: is how do we adjust to whatever? How can I put it? To when this is over, whatever adjustments we have to make, how do we do that and still succeed, be able to be open every day, etc.
Whoever else wants to chime in next, or if anybody else want to chime in and add to it.
I mean, I'll go ahead just from a venue standpoint. And obviously, I don't own the venue, but we operate the venue, and 99.9% of the programming that goes to the venue goes through us. I think to Charles's point, I mean, this is kind of weird. I know it is probably not super popular to say, but like the truth is, like I'm like crazy inspired. In short, what I found to be the most significant thing that I've experienced through this process is that I didn't realize how much of my everyday life was dedicated to work and other people. And when you get to the point where you're operating 7 days a week, doing 15 events a week, you got anybody who, if Aston's doing a party tonight, she needs all the details for her parties, at 2:00. And at the same time, I got Charles coming through, or I got Mike coming through tomorrow. So I got to answer those questions so that Mike can get ahead of the game before 3:00 the next day. So like, I didn't realize how much of my day to day was kind of wrapped in those small, intricate details, right? And it's not to say that they were a burden, but it's to say that I hadn't really done an accounting of how much of my day was for me, right? Additionally, when you get chopped up in that situation, the creative stuff that you got, that like 2:00 in the morning, you got off work. Me and Aston do this all the time. We'll just be like sitting somewhere and be like, yo, what if we did this? Like, that would be dope, right? And the idea is solid. Like, it's a great idea. But then 5 minutes later, we both got to go. All right, cool. I'll check in with you next week, because I got 1,700 meetings I got to have. So I feel like what I've really, really been inspired about through this process is that creative moment that, yo, what if we did this? I actually have more time to really think that out, flesh that out without the responsibility necessarily, to go and do the thing that has to be done right now. So, I mean, that's how I've been coping, I guess, is the best way to answer that question.
All right, well, I'll piggyback off of that. And I'm going to start with saying the views expressed here are solely my own and do not express the views or opinions of my employer.
So corporate.
Contro. Yes, I got to make sure of that so that we can have a candid conversation. But
yeah, so same, I need that same. Yep, Promontory is not represented here. This is McKinney. I am not representing Promontory.
Exactly. But all that to say, it's definitely like McKinney said, it's definitely allowed me to be more creative and be more flexible right now. And I know for some of my colleagues and counterparts, this has been difficult for them because they're straight up salespeople. I came from a marketing background, so this is actually interesting for me to be able to kind of move in a different space. So I'm actually have done some programming with both McKinday and Charles since all this COVID stuff starts, some virtual events and digital marketing and things of that nature. So, them being able to work with me and, continue our partnerships even throughout this like uncertain time has been cool. And, it's just kind of seeing where we go from here and seeing everybody's comfort levels of what they want to do, especially now we're getting to the point where, outdoors will open sometime soon. So what will that look like? And, what do we want to do and how involved do we want to get and how fast do we want to do that? So, that's kind of what's on everybody's mind. But with me being I'm in a corporate setting, but we're a small company for a supplier. So they allow us to move faster and make decisions on our own, which I think is a really cool thing.
All right, I think Sean just popped back in. But real quick, kind of touching on like I think McKinday and I are very similar in the type of work that we do, except that I'm on the opposite side. He's working directly with one specific venue. I'm working with multiple venues. I felt like it was weird for me. Like I literally went from I was working. We were coming off a All-Star weekend a few weeks before. Then St. Patty's weekend, which is one of the biggest weekends in Chicago, and then it was like boom, everything is closed. So for me, I kind of struggled as an event curator. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like I really didn't know. I felt like so much of my work and my identity was tied to being able to be outside and to connect with people. So I think that I went through like this period of I don't know, like Chicago was gloomy. It wasn't warm outside. I've got to sit in the house. It's 40 degrees. It might rain one day. I'm like, man, I just need to be out, So, I'm also a DJ. So I started DJing at home more, trying to, do some reading when I can. Started bike riding. But like mentally, it was tough because I realized that a lot of my energy was tied to connecting with other people. And I couldn't do, shout out to Teddy Gilmore in the comments. But I wasn't able to do the work that I would normally do. But Charles, I think that you touched on a good point, like, pivoting for when things are different. And I want to talk a little bit about, I think that there's illusion that sometimes with Black businesses that we kind of are just, maybe we're just coasting or we're just kind of, maybe thinking about day to day, but we can't always have the privilege of thinking of what does 6 months look like or what does a year or two look like because we're trying to make sure that we stay open. But, I think right now, there are a lot of challenges and things that are happening, but how do we pivot and start thinking of innovative ways to just be creative with how we operate as a business? Like, what do we do differently, specifically in Chicago and specifically as being a Black owned business? Like, what do we do differently?
That's kind of hard to say because it is an unknown, Mike. And you and I had a conversation on last night along with Ron. It's thinking outside the box. It's thinking on the worst case scenario and the best case. My partner Ron talks about the worst case all the time because you have to include that. What if it's this case? And okay, now what if it's this case? And I think that's one good thing of having partners like what I have is we try to think of everything. We try to. When we're not always right, but I don't know, Mike. It is a very big gray area for Ashton, for McKinday, for myself. It's a big gray area, because we don't know what this may hold. We could open for 2 months and then this winter it happens again. You know what I mean? So it's a big gray area. So with us, and I can't disclose exactly what that is, we've been talking about a few things on what we want to actually try, but we're not sure that it'll work. So in a nutshell, I think it is just thinking outside the box. It's asking people like Ashton, what does she think? It's asking people that come to Persona all the time, what would they like to see? All of our businesses is about our customers, correct? So it's about what do they think? What would they like to see when this is over? How would they like for us to proceed when they do open it back up to only 50% occupancy, what type of measures would you like for us to take, etc.? So, you know, I know that's a vague answer, but I think we're all in the stage of we don't know.
I'll piggyback on this, Charles. Like, honestly, like to your point, we don't know what the determined date is, which is tough. Like, if you're my primary job, myself, Matt Brooks, Jake Austin, who obviously helped program the space, or not help, but that's the team that programs the space. You know, we operate on calendars, man. If we need to know what date you want to do what you're trying to do, so that we can have the 2 months, 3 months beforehand to get all that together, right? For staffing, security, the whole nine, right? So yeah, not having the date is very difficult. That said, what we've been talking about a lot, and I mean, to Charles's point, I think it's interesting because it's like, yeah, it's like I can't tell you this is what we're doing because we don't know the date, right? That being said, bro, we're definitely trying to come up with all the possible tiered versions, right? Like the 50-person thing probably not gonna happen till August at best, right? You might be able to do, I think there was some news article the other day that was saying like patios can do 20 people in like 2 weeks, right? Whatever that is, we can expect that it's gonna scale up. So you're gonna start with a small group of people with very little touching and some distance in between, and then you're gonna slowly scale out. And to Charles's point, yeah, flu season is coming in October. Everywhere that has opened up to this point has seen a huge resurgence of the numbers going up. So you can expect that no matter where it's at, especially in a city as large as Chicago, right? So yeah, man, I think honestly, I'm looking at it from a standpoint of, and I love what Charles said about like, it's about the guests. If I have, you know, people that were coming to our house parties on Thursday nights, right? That's a specific crowd. We have a general access to that group of people. So what can we plan that will make that crowd, even if it's only 50 of them, what can we plan that will make that crowd still feel as if they have access to it? Because the second side of this, and I'm sure we'll get into this, is that everybody ain't coming back outside just because they say it's open, right? Like you're not planning to service the whole city like you were before. Before it was like, let's do something and we can get everybody here. That's dead for at least a year. So it's also about how do you construct something so that the people that do want to come out, one, if they thirsty to come out, cool, fine. But there's also that group that's on the fence that's like, I'll come out, but I need to know that there's some parameters being considered for me to do so. So I think that's all our focus right now. All our focus is what's the safest way to operate the smallest amount of, guest or business, so that we don't contribute to any spikes, and at the same time that we don't, like eliminate the opportunity to get back to open. So yeah, we're definitely thinking outside the box, but I'm also thinking in clear logistical brass tacks. How many people, how much distance, who's involved, when, where, how, and then from there, I think we'll scale out.
But somebody, I think Teddy brought up a good point. I'm just kind of trying to monitor the comments, and we're listening to the comments. We're gonna incorporate some of these questions more towards the end. But I think a good point. With 50 people get the bills paid. For example, McKinney, you work a lot of times in like the live concert space. So like the concert margin is very small, right? So let's say Promontory holds 500 people. That's the capacity. You might say I need to get 300 people in the door before I start to turn a profit on the concert or whatever. So now, if you're looking at, I can only have 50 people or 100 people 6 feet apart. Ain't no money in that. Like, ain't no money. Like, everybody literally has to rethink how they operate.
So look, I'm gonna say this, Mike, and let me make this real clear too, right? Like my biggest reason for really wanting to be involved in this conversation is that I think one of the biggest things, and I think Teddy would agree, because Teddy and I talk about this often, is that one of the biggest challenges in Chicago historically has always been this idea that it's got to be me, and if it's not me, then I ain't fucking with it, right? And I've never been that person. I was good at individual sports, but I didn't like doing it. I always like to be a part of a team. I always like to be a part of the group that was winning the championship, right? So I'm gonna just share straight up, like, and this is probably not something other people would do, but I don't care. This is what I'm doing. I believe that the way that you approach the small number is you book things in that capacity. So Teddy, if Teddy's spot is open, right? Teddy can do a 50-person party from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and people buy tickets for that 2-hour slot. Then he can do another 50-person from 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock to whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think that you book your calendar during the day based on those numbers. Now, yeah, what does that look like? On a Friday, we would normally do 500 people on a party. Good night, right? We do 500 people. So if I got to get to 500 by starting at 2, we're talking about a group of people, the city, that is primarily been sitting at the crib. And so if you can pick a 2-hour slot, you don't want to go out. Most people don't want to go out for 6 hours no more anyway. This is going to be a long time before people just comfortable going to the club, sweating and twerking all day. Like, this is a ways away. So yeah, I think that you program your stuff to fit in pockets. You know, if you live in New York, you can't build out. You don't have any more land. So you have to build up. So I think strategically, you think of your time slots as a way to say, how do I get to 300 in a particular day without having all 300 there at one time?
Is anybody else going to chime in, or before I went on to the next question? I want to be. Oh, go ahead, Charles.
No, I totally agree with what Kende said. It is being strategic, and what Teddy said is 150% correct. It is 50% don't pay the bills, but I have to go back to my lovely Ashton. My views don't reflect persona and my management and my partners. I, as Charles Martin, feel like you just have to withstand until there's some type of vaccination or cure, and that's me. That's how I feel. I feel stay on your feet, stay afloat until this is different. And with what that said, if my occupancy is cut in half, well, you're going to see that persona is possibly a bottles only or an invitation only, whatever. We're going to figure it out. That's one good thing about having a great team is we're going to figure it out, because you have a lot of people out there that are ready to get outside and to do something, which we want to be as safe as possible, but it's figuring it out, people, period. Like, if you let an obstacle, what's the point? You know, it's figuring out ways to get around that obstacle, whatever the case may be. But, you know, Teddy was completely right. 50 people don't pay the bills, but going to Monday, if you do it right, you're strategic, it could possibly get you through this hard time. Simple as that.
I want to build off of what they both said, and since we're talking about specifically about Black Chicago nightlife, I will say I hope where we are helps Black promoters and owners work collectively at this point, because we'll need case studies, we'll need to figure out what works and what doesn't work, and not hoard it to ourselves, but share those ideas and work collectively like other minorities in the city seem to do very well, but we don't. So I'm hoping a good thing that comes out of this is maybe that will change people's minds on sharing information.
And Mike, and if I could chime in and piggyback for a quick second off of what Ashton just said, I'm from Mississippi, so I've only been in Chicago for 6 years, and exactly what she just said, and I'm quite sure Mike, Sean, McKinday, Ashton, you all can literally say that myself and my partners are exactly what Ashton just said. I don't see that in Chicago, and I don't see that with our culture. We will share anything. We will help anybody. We've always been like that. Always. It's not our culture, but I see that a lot. And we wonder why we're in the same situation that we're in. and that's as a African American culture. And like I said, there's 4 other people on here. You all can say right now that dealing with us, we're not those people, but we have dealt with that, and it's frustrating to me. Like, come on, like if we don't stick together and do things together, share with each other, how are we going to prosper, last, whatever? So exactly what Ashton said, like we have to do this together or it won't work.
Okay, so
Sean, well, hold
I,
on, Mike. Sean, do you want to chime in? Because I did want to add one more point to Charles's thing, but I want to make sure Sean has an opportunity to speak too.
You speaking to me now?
Yeah, I was saying like I don't want to
Okay.
cover you. Yeah.
No, I'm just listening to what everybody's saying. From our point of view, at Renaissance, what we're gonna do is basically what we have to do first is see what the state, and then after the state make their decision on what they want to do and what they want to allow, we got to look at and see what our mayor wants to do, because she seems to uh, make her own decisions on what it is she wants to do with regards to how we're going to open and what we're going to do when we open. So once we get the parameters, once we know the date that we can actually open, because actually yesterday I think the state said that restaurants and bars with outdoor space can open. And I think today, I just right before we got on, I got an email from the city, not directly, but just an email from the city saying that now restaurants and cafes can open up with the outdoor space, excluding bars, and that won't happen until early part of June or sometime in June. So it's kind of hard to say how we're gonna change and what we're gonna do until we know what the rules are, and what the playing field is gonna look like. But what I will say, uh, what this has done for a lot of businesses and like myself, is given us an opportunity to look outside the box, to actually do other things. I actually, right before this all started, I got with a group of guys and we just started to open up a jerk chicken restaurant. And this happened back in November. So we had no idea that this pandemic would happen. So our opening time was early March. The city shut down restaurants and bars mid-March. So just so happened our restaurant was a takeout restaurant, so that helped. But then on the backside, on the other side, me having another bar, Tantrum, we've been in business since 2009, and like a lot of other businesses in the city, this one won't last. This one won't survive. So after 12 years of being one of the few black-owned bars in the downtown area, this pandemic has got one of us, and Tantrum is one that won't return. And reason being why it won't return is that the capacity issue. We're 50 people legally, and if they go 50%, 25%, if you go 25%, that's only 12 and a half people. You just can't make it financially or economically that way. And so the unknown is hurting us on one end, but then the unknown or the situation that's going on right now is actually helping us on the other side. So like Renaissance, we have an outdoor patio in the back of our establishment. So if we're gonna open, that's gonna be a benefit to us, because at this point, a lot of people uh, probably not comfortable being inside of a venue at this point. So having an outdoor space definitely does help. So we're getting hit from both ends, some on the good side, some on the bad side.
so I
I'll
want
say
to.
this.
Okay, one
My
second.
bad, Mike. I don't mean to cut you off, man, but I think it's an important point to make that Charles was talking about, like being from Mississippi and the idea that people in the South generally share. My father shared this with me a long time ago. He said, in the South, they have that Southern hospitality because their growing season is longer, right? So their crops, they have 9 months out of the year that they can grow crops before it gets cold and the crops won't make. So yeah, if you go to somebody's house in the South, they generally have an abundance. Here in the North, we got 3 months, probably 4 months of growing season. So it is a historic part of the Chicago, part of the North culture's perspective to hoard and keep tight, because you don't know if you're going to make it 6 more months and have enough for your family, right? So I just think that's an important thing to insert in this conversation, because we're talking about Black Chicago, and that we also know Chicago had a huge Southern migration here, but having to adjust to just the geography changes a lot in what you want to do versus what you can do.
I think so a lot of good conversation happening. I'm going to start to get into some harder conversations. We got a good amount of people tuned in. I know they want to hear it, I want to make sure they leave with something that's solid. So a couple of things I thought about is, as an event curator, I'm not from here, but I've been in Chicago since 2007. I've noticed, like, I do events in multiple markets, and how people move, in DC versus Atlanta versus New York, just like the cultural differences of Chicago. And one thing I thought about, I was seeing during this pandemic and everything that was going on, there was sort of like a society or a united front of independent live music venues here in Chicago, where they kind of banded together and say, hey, this is what we need as, independent music venues. And this is what we're asking for specifically from the city of Chicago, from the state of Illinois. I think that, while it's great that we all know each other and we're talking to each other, there is not a united front of Black owners and Black venues kind of vetting together to say, this is what we all need and this is what needs to be happening. I think that, I don't know the circumstance, and, Sean, I'm gonna allow you to like talk about it a little bit, but, I'm wondering if we could have said, I've seen a lot of GoFundMe accounts set up like for different organizations, like, those Sub T, another independent venue, just set up one yesterday and say, hey, we need you all support. If you all want to continue to come to Sub T, we need your support in order for us to stay open. I'm wondering, are the Black venues doing the same thing and setting up GoFundMes and reaching out to people? But then I'm also wondering, do you feel like you're getting enough support from Black Chicago financially in terms of making sure your venues are staying open? Could this maybe like a month ago, Sean, is there a conversation that, maybe we could have said, hey, and I know this is probably, a difficult thing to talk about, but I just want to prevent, during this time, we lost Bureau Bar, we lost the Delta, not Luella's Southern Kitchen, but their sister, I guess like the smaller site. My understanding is that they're closed, Tantrum. So, that's at least 4. And I'm pretty sure that I'm probably forgetting some spots that are closing or potentially closing, or, not really sure what their status is going to look like in the future. But one, why is there no united front for Black venues and kind of everybody working together to address their concerns and needs? And 2, what do you think we could be doing more to rally behind Black Chicago to get to support so that we don't continue to lose the Tantrums and the Bureau Bars? And, every scenario is different, right? I get it. Like, every venue has their own situation, but I think that's important for us to have that conversation. Like, what do you need specifically from Black Chicago right now?
Well, with us over at Tantrum, it was more. I don't think, like, prior to the shutdown or the stay-in rule here here in the state, or nationwide rather, we were doing good at Tantrum, and we had a good run. We just celebrated April 30th, our 12th year being in business. We have 4 more years left on our lease, and the problem with us was that 12 years ago when we moved there, the South Loop looked a whole lot different. We had a parking lot next door to us, and it was right now that there's a tall apartment building right there now. So there are residential buildings in the area, and then there are other businesses in the area, and then I'm gonna just be frank with you. We're Black, all right, and it doesn't matter if you're a Black guy going into a club in a suit, or you're a Black guy going into a club with a T-shirt on like I have on. You tend to have problems with the neighbor, or the community that's changing around you. And so we had a lot of problems with the neighbors. I lived in a building well, not lived in a building. We had a business in a building with a bunch of residential tenants upstairs, and none of the tenants came to our establishment. You know, maybe one or two. I remember when we first opened at Tantrum, you get somebody, it'll be after work, a bunch of guys watching the games, the Bulls games, back when the Bulls were winning. And I literally sit there and see a white person walk up to the top of the stairs, look in, and like eyes get wide open because they see 10 or 15 black people sitting at a bar and they don't come in and they just walk out. So that was the start of it. And then it got to a point where, you know, it was just management of the building wasn't cooperative. The neighbors in the area didn't help. Anything that went bad in the area, they blamed it on us. So at some point, it got to a point, man, this might be an out for us. You know, at some point you just get tired of trying to be in an area that don't want you.
Right.
Where we are in Renaissance, we're in Bronzeville. They love us over there. That's our community. That's where I live. In the area I live, and most of the people that come to my events live in that area. So I've gotten to a point in my age that I'm not trying to run downtown. I'm not knocking people that do run downtown, throw parties downtown, and look for that hot spot downtown. And the next thing you know, you got an alderman that's trying to get you out. Well, you know, I'm not saying the alderman I had, because we had a good relationship with the alderman that we had. That helped us stay longer than we actually did. But there are just so many different dynamics that play that at some point you just get tired. And this gave us an out, and we took advantage of it. Management and of the building and my team, we came to a mutual agreement, and we decided to move on. So there was nothing that others that could have helped us. It was just on our end. It was just the best move for us. And coming back after a situation like this with a small capacity, it just wouldn't make economic sense for us. So Tantrum is done right now there, but we will be back.
So,
And I'll agree with what Sean said, because if he remembers, a couple years ago, I actually used to live above Tantrum for like 7 years. So that was like my basement for a while. And I remember, you know, a group of people that don't look like us coming in, and they'd be like, oh, no, we're going to just go down the street, like, you know, find something
Right.
else. So I remember all of that. I remember, you know, we had the same landlord. So I could attest to everything that you are saying.
And
Yep.
likewise here at Persona, like it's so funny that Sean said that. I got my partner Ron sitting on the other side here, and he just started laughing. Definitely true. Like we have so many other nationalities walk in, look in during happy hour, and turn around and walk out.
Right.
And the is the ones that come on in and stay will literally tell somebody on my staff, like, oh my God, I love this place. You know what I mean? Give it a chance, you know.
I'm gonna say
Yep,
something
just give it a chance.
real quick. I think we touched on a lot of important things. Like Chicago is extremely segregated, and unfortunately, if you have first of all, like as a black event curator, there are certain spots that I just don't have access to, or me getting access to them comes with X, Y, and Z that I wouldn't have to deal with at other places. And it's the same thing with Chicago. Once a venue is known as a black spot, it becomes the black spot, and it's really hard to come back from that, unfortunately. So that means that we really need continuously, you know, I hear people all the time like, man, I'm tired of going to Persona. I done been there on every Friday for the past 3 weeks, or I'm tired of going to Promontory. I want to go somewhere else. And so I definitely understand that. Like, I definitely understand we want to access to more spaces and things like that. But at the same time, we have to support the spaces that we have that we can to get to come open. But what I'm thinking about is, you know, there's so much appeal. Like if I live, and I was, you know, Charles, I was talking to Ron about this earlier. If I live on the South Side, maybe I'm thinking that, and this is just my rationale. Maybe I'm thinking that I want to leave and I want to go downtown. I want to go somewhere that I don't get to have access to as often, which is the appeal to maybe going to a bar in the South Loop or a bar in the West Loop. And then there's also the idea that I live in Bronzeville. There are a lot of black professionals that live in Bronzeville, Kenwood, Hyde Park. that could very well go to Renaissance on a daily basis, and we live right down the street. We don't have to go 3 or 4 miles away. So I'm wondering, like, what does that look like? Are we able to, in the city of Chicago, to be like, you know what if we all came together and decide, like, you know, F it, I'm not going to continue to try to build venues or put up venues where we're not wanted. We're all going to come together and be like, you know what, we're about to take over Bronzeville. It might be too late for Bronzeville, if I'm being, you know, quite frank. But, you know, maybe we say we're going to open up 5-10 venues in Bronzeville, create a community, a culture of ourselves. You know, Sean going to open up a restaurant. Charles is going to open up a happy hour spot. You know, McKinday is going to help us open up another music venue or something like that. So we have our own community and resources of places, and we build up from there. And that's when we talk about, you know, a unified front. If everybody is moving and, you know, respectfully, Sean doing this thing and Charles, Ron, and Bobby doing their thing. And, you know, same thing with promoters, different 20 different promoters. They're all moving in different things and, you know, spreading out their resources. I think this is really a time right now. We talk about innovation. Like, you know, Teddy said in the comments, and I'm trying to, you know, manage the comments, but it's like, how do we all come together and start thinking like, man, you know what? I had an experience with trying to open up something in the South Loop or in this particular area. The alderman wasn't working with us or whatever, or this person or this realtor wasn't working with us or whatever. I think that we need to be having those conversations so that we can progress. And honestly, we need to figure out how we can own the building. Like, you know,
check it out. So to your point, Mike, just like to be very honest, so like, and Teddy is an excellent case standpoint on this. About probably a year ago now, Teddy called a series of us, like promoters, DJs, artists, business owners, you know, to a meeting. And the meeting was with I forget the name of the brother and the name of his organization, but basically this organization's job, they had a contract with the city to go over demographics so that when new businesses were opening up in new areas, this is the business that they tapped to do the data collection on who the who's in that area, right? What's likely going to win in that area, right? And Teddy's whole point at that whole thing was exactly what you're saying. At the time, we were talking about 47th Street because there's currently like 4 empty lots on 47th Street right next door to Two Fish, right? Black owned, the best crab situation in the city, hands down. Everybody knows that. But black owned joint. But next to that is like 3 empty lots. And the city is currently right now working on the business development for who's going to buy those lots, right? And to your point about Bronzeville being too late, that was 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago is when it became too late to be in Bronzeville because they had already started that process of the regentrification and the business developers, etc. Honestly, you can't touch Hyde Park because that's University of Chicago, so scratch that. Now you're on the Woodlawn, right? Woodlawn is really your next initial area. You got the Obama Library coming, etc. Right? So yes, I think the fact that the conversation needs to be had is one thing. But I'm going to say that the conversation has been had. The difficulty is twofold. The first part is that historically, South Side don't fuck with North Side, North Side don't fuck with South Side, West Side don't fuck with nobody, right? This is a historic thing. This is not something that just happened because of coronavirus. This has been going on in the city of Chicago for an extremely long time. When Ashton said earlier, other communities seem to have this capacity to connect and build, right? So that they can grow their cultural perspective in a particular area. But the truth is, to Sean's point, they were given that opportunity without challenge. The Black community has always had challenges steeped upon them that were not directly necessary for what they were doing. If Sean and Teddy were opening up a spot and they got all their ducks in a row because they've been doing this for 20 years, like it's clear that they know what they're doing, right? Just because it's Sean and Teddy, you're gonna start seeing some of these extra citations or some of these extra inspector visits. Like it's real. I mean, Eldridge from the Delta is a very good brother of mine. I'm low-key supposed to go kick it with him today, but I had too much going on. And to be fair, just to be straight up, the reason why the Delta closed is totally separate of the support thing. The one thing about the Delta, quite honestly, is that it was very well supported by the white community, like straight up. Like everybody over there just rocked with the Delta. It wasn't really a a black spot. It was black owned, dope black chef. And the concept maybe came from the Soul South, but it was well supported by everybody. The reason why the Delta closed is a total different subject. But first you have to address the history. You have to address the fact that there is a historical concept here that black folks can only operate. The reason why the South Side looks the way it is because of redlining, and the reason it was called the Black Belt. Right now, here's the crazy part about that whole situation. The intent upon putting all black people, if you move from Mississippi and said, I want to move somewhere, they was like, well, these are the only places we'll let you move in because the white communities don't want you in their community. So all that turned south, right? 30 years later, not even 30, maybe like 15 years later, you have the Black metropolis. You have the greatest center of Black-owned banks, Black-owned hospitals, Black-owned legal practices, everything Black-owned, right? Bronzeville, the signs that you see on 47th, those are signs celebrating the Black-owned culture of Chicago that got taken away from them when they began to try and play the let's serve everybody game. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't play the let's serve everybody game. I'm simply saying that historically, there was a point where we had it and we lost it. I ain't gonna say why we lost it. There's probably a million reasons, but we lost it, right? And so now we're at an opportunity where we're saying, well, how do we reclaim something that we had already? The second point I'm gonna make is that, let's be real, this is business. We are talking about capitalism. We are talking about, you know, the idea I shared about the 50-person every 3 hours. That was an idea that in my mind, I'm thinking I can't tell nobody about that. Because if I tell somebody about that, they're gonna beat me to it, right? But to Charles's point, I can't tell you how many times Ron, Bobby, Charles have hit me up when somebody was like, yo, so-and-so hit me up, they want to do an event, we can't do it. I told them Promontory is the best spot, right? So it is a lot more of that. It is a lot more of that. It is just because I can't do the business, just because I can't be the one knocking it out, instead of hoarding that and putting that to the side and being like, well, nobody can do it. Let me hit Sean. Renaissance is literally half a mile away from Promontory, right? And like, we serve the same community, but we serve it differently. And I've had a number of people leave a Renaissance party, 200 people will leave a Renaissance party and come to Promontory, or vice versa. We end something at 9 o'clock, a concert, and where y'all headed? Oh, we headed to Renaissance. So I think it's upon us to be the ones doing that, saying, instead of me asking you where we going, no, y'all need to go to Renaissance, bro. My man Joe College over there, he got this thing rocking, you know what I'm saying? Ashton is doing a sponsorship situation. Like, I think it's upon us to be very, very direct in promoting each other's businesses, because only from there will you actually have this support. Asking somebody to support you is stupid. They should, if they support you, it's because of what you're doing and because of what you are a part of. So they will continue to support if they believe in the mission and they believe in what you are a part of. Asking them to support, this is business. Don't ask nobody. You got to do business.
So I want to.
We definitely do that. Refer business to other restaurants or other bars. Kenny Johnson over at Bureau Bar, he and I do that all the time. If I can't do something in my space, I call Kenny. Likewise, he turning around. If he can't do it in his space, he'll call me. Even when it comes to employees, I mean, if I got a bartender or someone who I interviewed and I don't have any space for him, I'll call over to Kenny. Hey, you got room for her, or you got room for this guy? So we definitely work together, because that's the best way to do it. And that's the best way to survive. Just work together.
So I want to real quick. I want to touch on this. I think that, you know, it's important that we're all referring to each other, but we also got to hold each other accountable. Like, it's a small group of us, might be 20 or 30 of us working in this space doing the same thing. You know, I'm fortunate to have crossed paths with so many people in the course of the past 3 or 4 years. So it's definitely a blessing. But, you know, I think that there also has to be a certain quality that we're living up to, right? So, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm in my early 30s. I will go to each one of you all spots for a different type of vibe, depending on what I'm looking for. You know, I might go to Promontory for this. I might go to Renaissance for this. I live right around the corner for Renaissance. So I'll go to Renaissance and sit out on the patio and chill. Like that's, you know, if I want to like stay in my neighborhood and stuff like that. But with that, you know, we also have to be innovative. Like, you know, think about like, how do we, it's not enough to just say this is a black owned business and we got to support it just because it's black owned. We also have to challenge each other to think about how can we be innovative? Like, what are we doing differently? And I think honestly, you know, a lot of businesses probably need like a McKinsey, somebody that is managing the event production and making sure everything is flawless so that when people are, you know, I might say, hey, I know 5 different organizations I want to send to, you know, X venue. And when I send it to them, I'm also putting my reputation on the line. And if they don't have a good experience, that's affecting me. And that's going to affect whatever, you know, relationship I have with that person. But if there's somebody that's doing their due diligence and I'm like, okay, this spot is not only black owned, but they on point with their service. They on point with everything. If you say this is going to happen, this is going to happen. So I think we also gotta I gotta challenge everybody. We gotta step our game up. I gotta step my game up. There's some things I could be doing better as an event curator. But we gotta hold each other accountable. And you know, one thing you said about the Delta, specifically is the location. I think there's something about the appeal of you going to a neighborhood that isn't dominated by you. It's a nicer space. Like there is no black owned rooftop that we can go to. So, you know, we're losing. If I want to go to a rooftop, you're automatically going to lose out on my business because there's no black owned rooftop that I'm aware of that I can go to just get that vibe. So we don't have that lane in the summertime. There's maybe one black owned music venue. So I produce a lot of concerts. So as I'm doing concerts, you know, I'm in the concert space as well. There's very limited amount of things that I could do in terms of like producing concerts in a reasonable area, right? So I have to think about like, how do I also grow my business and reach a young, savvy millennial so that I can grow and flourish. And then I have to say, okay, I want to take my people also back to the South Side and make sure that I'm putting money back into those things. But when we do, it has to be such a good experience that people are like, man, like, you know, Mike brought me here, or McKinsey brought me here, or Ashton did a pop-up with, you know, something here with Tip Off or whoever. And I want to keep going back because I had such a good experience. So we got to talk about that, like innovation. Like, what are we doing specifically to think outside the box? How do we challenge? I don't know. This is like a loaded question. Like, you know, Teddy said, it's so many different things. Because I'm like, man, I want to go support, you know, make sure everybody's doing well. But then I'm also like, man, I want to go smoke a cigar on the rooftop, or I want to chill downtown or whatever. Pier 31 is a good balance. I know Aston does a lot of stuff at Pier 31. It's black owned to my understanding. So for everybody that wants to go out, Pier 31, be outside. But what are you all thoughts to that? Like if you go to, you know, a DC, Atlanta, New York, Houston, you know, when I'm talking about innovation, I'm talking about like there's a turkey leg cut. There's like all these different, it's not just that it's black owned. It's like it's quality food, but it's something out of the box. Like how do we step into these spaces and become more innovative with our ideas so then we can say like, okay, I'm losing people to this trendy spot. How do what's stopping me from opening up that trendy creative spot?
Well, if I may, this is something that I asked you, Mike, and my partner, Ron. I was like, how do I answer this question? Do I be as real as I could possibly be, or do I be PC? Ron, Bobby, and myself, a couple of our friends, we love going to DC. We love going to Atlanta. And there's a reason why. Like I said, I'm not from Chicago. I've been here for 6 years, going on 7. How can I put it? Chicago is unlike any other city I've ever seen in my life. I'm from the South, so Atlanta was my stomping ground. I moved here from Nashville. We go to DC all of the time. And I'm just going to keep it 100. You get mad at me, you do. But Chicago is one of those only cities to where everybody can't come and party together. If that makes any sense, I will elaborate on it. And like I said, I had to call and ask my partner earlier, like, bro, how do I answer this question? Because Mike already told me about it. And I'm just going to be 100. This is candid. The dope boys party with the doctors. The doctors and the dope boys party with the professionals in DC. The dress code don't matter in DC and Atlanta, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And being from the outside looking in, as much as we go to those cities, we've never seen a fight. We've never seen a shooting. We've never seen these things. Not saying that it doesn't happen, but this is from the outside looking in and Charles Martin views. There's been such a stigma put on Chicago's nightlife that whether it happens as much as it does or not, it's still a stigma that has been put on the nightlife in Chicago. Like I said, and we saw that instantly when we go to the DCs and the Atlantas. My partners have told me, like, bro, everybody's in here, whether it's taken from the Chicago demographic. You got West Side, South Side, corporate, downtown, South Loop, West Loop, all in one place. You don't see that in Chicago. I'm wrong.
I mean, I'll say straight up, Charles, like as a Chicagoan through and through, like it's, and you know, like you said, man, just being 100, like not trying to tippy toe and be all politically correct. It's gang culture, bro. Like flat out. You had BDs out south, GDs out west, foes up north, like and where I'm from in Maywood, we had 21 blocks. 21 blocks. There were 8 different gangs in 21 different blocks. So gang culture plays a role in that stigma. Yeah. Right. And if you really look at the history, Tim U.L. Black, I don't know if y'all know who Tim U.L. Black is, but he's 102 now. But he wrote the first real study of gang culture from Chicago. And he expanded it out to like the Crips and Bloods in LA or whatever. But one of the key pieces that he talks about in his book and in his research is that gang culture started out as a way to protect your block from oppression from the forces outside of your culture. So when the police was rolling up and down the block on 47th and they was just chastising people and getting at people, these are brothers that was like, nah, bro, you're gonna have to fight all 20 of us on this block, right? And those, the Jeff Forts, the Hoovers, if you do the history, they all were really business savvy cats. They were focused on empowering their community so that they could stop being taken advantage of, right? That's gone by the wayside. We could talk about forever why, but that's gone by the wayside. So yeah, I agree with you that there's certainly a stigma. And I'm 100% with you. When I was in DC, I was freaking out. People at DC parties dance. They dance, bro. The music comes on and people dance. Like people go around the club, reaching their hand out like, oh, come on, can I dance with you? And whoever you reach out to is like, yeah, because they there to dance, man. Chicago definitely has a different vibe. I'm not going to say good or bad, but yeah, Atlanta, the South, again, we go, it's very historical. We can't talk about it like it's not rooted in history, right? To your question, Mike, about how to be innovative, I do, man. I think that is the $1 million question, because from a business standpoint, you need investment dollars, period. You were talking about like, why don't, you know, the organization you're talking about in Chicago is Civil, the collective of independent venue owners or whatever, right? And they're petitioning Mayor Lightfoot, they're petitioning the national government, federal government for all of these funds and stuff that are coming out. And from my understanding, we were only second to California. We got the most response from the political culture of that outreach from the civil group. California was the only state to beat us, right? That being said, it's not just about collecting each other and talking about it. It's about establishing investment groups. When we had that meeting with Teddy was saying, well, we have a meeting with the alderman in the 4th Ward, alderman in the 5th Ward, and we have the chief of staff of the mayor's office coming to the meeting. And what we want to talk about is, what are the price points going to be? What are the licenses necessary? But you need an investment group. You need a group of people who are committed to investing in these businesses so that they can even open to begin. All the conversation about what we want to do with it, that's great. But if you don't have the actual city buy-in, if you don't have the structure to be able to get the business open, it's curtains from that point forward.
And if going on what Kende said, you are right. We've been here at Persona for 2 years. Ron, Bobby, and myself have been having events and parties for what, 4 years? To my knowledge, nobody's reached out to us when All-Star Weekend happened. I asked Ron and Bobby, like, bro, why aren't all of us meeting a month of figuring out how this whole market is ours? You know what I mean? When this
NBA.
when this pandemic happened, one of the greatest assets that we have is our partnerships. Our partner Reggie Marsh got on it. Period. Why didn't all of us meet somewhere and be like, how do we get this money that they're giving out? So with that being said, I will go back to this all of the time. I'm not from here, but I see a disconnect that is bigger than the Atlantic Ocean here in this city. There's a disconnect. Like, we don't talk. We don't look out for one another like we should. Because honestly, All-Star should have been ours, period. And I'm going to be honest with you, and don't take this as an arrogant moment. Me, Mike Mosley, and some of the guys that we messed with, we did our thing. But that's because we came together and be like, fellas, what do we need to do? Period. But we don't get phone calls. We don't get, hey guys, let's meet. And one thing I can say about Ron, Bobby, and myself, we willing to meet anybody if it means helping all of us and let's do better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't happen here. So when we talk about DC and these other cities, guarantee you there's one man you can call in Atlanta to get in touch with every single African-American or Black-owned nightclub bar in Atlanta. Ron, Bobby, and myself know the guy in DC that you can call to get in touch with everybody there. Give me that one person in Chicago that you can call that could put you in touch with every single Black-owned nightclub, bar, lounge in Chicago. There's not one.
I mean, I don't think that there maybe is one. I think that there are people that have been doing it a lot longer than I have. Shout out to Pyramid, the Move Makers, my homie Sigma Chris, a bunch of other people that have been, I know I'm forgetting a ton of people. But it's not, I think, honestly, so we could say that we had probably the biggest party in terms of numbers at Soldier Field during the All-Star weekend. And I got to be honest, though, the appeal about people coming to that party was the fact that it was a venue that they don't normally go to. And I got to be honest, from my perspective, as a promoter, people are going to be like, man, I can go to Promontory, Renaissance, Persona any other weekend. It's All-Star weekend. I want to go somewhere I don't normally get access to. So I think the segregation plays a big factor in the mindset of, we don't normally get access to these places. I want to venture out and try somewhere different. And so I think that we need, I don't know how we do this, but I think that we need maybe 3 personas. We need 3 Renaissances. We need 3 Promontories so that people have a variety of venues that we own that we can take people to. But I want to say something really quick. So me and Ron were talking about this earlier, and so we were saying that, like, we think that, like, Black consumers are harder on Black-owned businesses in terms of quality of service and experience. So that if you do some, you fuck up, excuse my candidate, but if you fuck up once, like, that's your chance. Like, we're not giving you another chance. Well, white-owned businesses, we are harder on them about racism and discrimination. So we're going to go back, but we're going to complain and be like, man, I want to go back to XYZ venue because I had a great experience in terms of, the quality of the product, but I didn't like the way I was treated. So I'm going to give them another chance. And I just wonder, kind of like how you all feel about that in terms of, that's just my perspective. How do you all feel about that specifically? And how do we change that mindset? How do we get our people to give us another chance? Or is it that, we're not as accessible as we would like to be because we don't have as large of a staff? Or I don't know, I'm kind of ranting right now, but
that is one of the hardest things in the world. Mike hit it dead on the head. I have seen people on Hudson Street that will wait in line for an hour, get disrespected, whole 9 yards, and be right back on next week, right? But I've also seen people in line at Persona that we have to check your ID, do a coat check, and you wait in line 10, 15 minutes and we get cursed out. Like, I don't know how you fix that, man. Like, that's one of the things that this whole conversation is about, that we have to love, care for one another and our culture more than we do anybody else. I feel like we're the only culture that don't do that. We're harder on each other than we are anybody else in this world. And the reason why, I don't know, but I've been to many clubs. I'm 42. I've been to many clubs. I've had to wait in line. I've not gotten in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you come to a black-owned, it's our own black people that grade us 20 times harder than anybody else, but will go anywhere else and get disrespected and not look at it a second time and come right back. That's something that will me forever.
I'll give you a good example, man. So like I'm currently driving as a delivery driver for Kimbark Liquors, a black-owned liquor store. Let me clarify one thing, which is obvious, right? Promontory is not black-owned, right? And I think that's an important part of this conversation. I don't think that, I mean, while I am in full support of black ownership, I also believe that anybody willing to invest in servicing the black market should be equally appreciated and respected, right? So while we are not a black-owned business by any standpoint, they do invest all those dollars, all those resources into servicing that market, right? And, you know, to be very, very, very fair here, they really don't sit on our shoulder. They are like, you all, we hired you to do it. We trust you all to do it for your market the right way. It's still a business. So if it's not working, then yeah, we're going to make some moves, right? But at the end of the day, we do get to make those decisions. I mean, there are a number of people that really think I own Promontory, which is hilarious. But that's
you do own Promontory.
But that's a testament, to be honest, that's a testament to the fact that they're willing to invest the dollars into us operating that space for that market, and they're willing to trust me to do it, or they're willing to trust Matt to do it, or they're willing to trust Jake to do it, right? So so let me just say that, right? Like, but interesting enough, so I'm driving and I pull up at this condo in Hyde Park, and they got like one of those little turnabouts. And this is coronavirus time, right? So like everybody got on masks, everybody got on gloves. You go into the building to drop off your delivery, and the door guy's there, like, okay, put your delivery there. Did you call the person? Are they coming down? All this is going on, right? I'm behind on my deliveries, like I'm rushing. I pull in the turnabout. Brother comes out, he's the door guy, comes out and is like, you can't stop here. And I'm like, what the hell do you mean? That's the whole purpose of this driveway situation. I'm supposed to be able to pull up, put on my flashers, drop off the merch, and get moving. He's like, no, you can't park here, you can't park here. Another brother is doing like a Uber Eats or Grubhub situation. He catches me in mid about to go off. Like, man, I'm snapping on this dude, right? Like, man, look, I don't know what you talking about, bro. The whole point of this is for me to be able to do this. The other brother in the Grubhub car taps me on the shoulder. He's like, hey, bro, this ain't the right time for that. This ain't the time to do that. Now, what's hilarious to me is that he was saying this ain't the time to do that because of coronavirus. He wasn't saying this ain't the time to do that because you talking to another brother or because we talking about, you know, he was saying that because coronavirus. So my point here is that you're right, Mike. There is a tremendous amount of disconnect with us when there's not a tragedy, when there's not some catastrophic thing going on. When some kid gets shot, Black Twitter, Black Instagram, Black Facebook unites, right? The week before the black kid got shot, we all shooting shots at each other. We all trying to get our little pieces and lock it in. So yeah, you're talking about how to create Black utopian unity, brother. I don't know that that's the real thing. I don't know that that'll ever happen. I think that we focus on the pieces that are actionable. And I think that this country is based on capitalism. If you don't have investment, the rest of this shit is a moot point.
So I just want to say, but we were talking about McKinney being the face of Promontory. That is a big thing for me, just from the space that I'm in as a supplier. Is I usually don't even try to work with anyone that's not an advocate for us. So even if they're not Black owned, you know, places like, let me throw out like Municipal before they close. Municipal's closed now, but Pam Municipal, not Black, but she would always open her doors and didn't care about what color anybody was. And right in the middle of River North. There's a couple I can throw out, but I think having people like a Sandy Robinson, everybody knows Sandy, she's the queen of Chicago, to get us in places like the Godfrey and Essex and not have any issues.
Juan Teague is another.
Juan Teague, yeah, Juan was next on my list. People like Juan Teague. We need advocates and people like that at the table and at higher positions at places that aren't owned by us, to be able to get us good access and quality, without having issues at certain places. And we don't have enough people like that and that can sit at the table and vouch for us and fight to make sure that we're treated just like everybody else that's coming in the door.
True. Hey, look, and I'll put it like this. I offer persona anytime when all of us want to sit down, have a drink, and meet and talk. That's what we need. That's what we need. The Sandy Robinsons, the Astons, the McKinday, the Sigma Chris's, the Pyramids, the
Rendell Solomon, Jeff Beckham, like the Josh Mercers, like people that are involved in industry, right? Absolutely. People that understand industries.
I feel like if you put all of us at a table, sort of like a black Illuminati, excuse my put us together and let's start doing this. F all of these excuses. Really.
When is the meeting? When is the meeting, Charles?
Hey, like I said, I just offered it. So all it takes is us to put it together, because one thing that I can say about my two partners, as well as Marianne and Reggie, we're down for that. That's one thing I have not seen happen. I tell me and Ron and myself are from the South. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. We've seen more unity in the South in the third largest city in the United States. And you guys can dispute that if you want, but we from the small towns. I see more unity in those small states than I see in this major city. Nobody's called us. Nobody said, hey guys, let's sit down and talk. Nobody's called us and did that ever. So exactly what we just finished talking about, the Sandys. I love her to death.
That's my girl.
Ashton is amazing, no matter what.
Thank you.
Honestly, I'm calling Ashton for whatever. She's never told us no, etc. She's never came to us and said, can I do this? And we've said no. Let's sit down and do that. The Teddy Gilmores, everybody. Let's sit down and do this. We're the people in this city that's doing this for our culture, but we have not had one freaking meeting. Not one.
Yeah.
So say what we want, but we ain't never sat down and talked about shit. And I'm keeping it 100 because that's what this conversation is supposed to be. I'm offering our space to sit right here and do it. And I'll open up plenty of bottles of Remy while we sit and talk about it.
So we, I think that is, I was gonna say, I think that it is true. That is important. But we also need to make sure that we get a post from the people that we feel like we want more support from, and that we might need to throw out some polls or some sort of surveys to figure out what people feel like they're missing. Are we just opening up places because we think we just want to open it up, or are we actually opening up something that the community says that we think that we need? But we got a lot of questions coming in. I want to make sure we start to kind of get to some of the questions. Somebody asks, so one thing I want to say really quick, Ashton, your point about the venue doesn't always have to be Black owned, but have to be very supportive of Black culture and understanding what's going on. I would throw a lot of events in DC and New York and Brooklyn and get access to venues. I live in Chicago. I'm sending an email to somebody that live halfway across the country, and I'm getting access to much nicer venues, people that understand our culture, that appreciate it, and it is more of a melting pot. I can be like, I can play this kind of music, or try a little thing. So I think this has always been a challenge in Chicago, but also I want to challenge, like, I'll say this, I told Ron and, them at Persona, I'm like, you got to diversify your programming. Like every night, and this is every Black owned venue, every night can't feel the same. Maybe I want to come to Persona on a Thursday and it's a trivia night. Or maybe I want to come there on Sunday and hear some live music. Or maybe I want to come there on another night and it's it's Aladdin night or something like that. I think we got to diversify the programming and not feel like just because it's Black owned, everything has to feel the same every single time. But getting to the questions, somebody asked, Alex was like, would there be temperature checks at the door, disposable cups and menus? I don't think that we really got anything tangible from anybody of like, what is it?
That's not true. That's not true. Juan Teague actually is heading up a committee of promoters, venue operators, etc. She sent it to me today, actually.
I got
She
it
has
too.
actually a prescribed list of operational standards for cleanliness, for social distancing, and she's very intentional about being clear that yeah, it's important that we are all thinking about those things, not just, hey, can we throw a party again? So no, it's out there. I forget the name of it because I don't want to click off, but Juan Teague, if you go to her page, I'm sure you'll find like a post. But she sent that out to a lot of people. There's like 400 different people involved in it already. So there is a prescribed practices that she's
No, I get that. I'm speaking specifically like people in the chat, they want to hear some of the things about that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we do. But first of all, I have to digress and go back. My partner Ron let me know that, and credit to Teddy, I don't know if he's still on here. Ron told me that Teddy tried to do what I was speaking about a while ago with getting everybody together. I didn't know that. I think it was when we were first opening. So, of course, we had a lot going on. So, shout out to Teddy for that. Let's make it happen again for real, Teddy. So, let's
I
do
was
it.
at that meeting, Charles, and I'm telling you, one thing that I failed to mention is that one of Teddy's main points at that meeting was we need to be electing officials, aldermen, right? We need to be focusing on who we want to support so that when they get the position, we know that they will answer our phone calls. So if
now,
we want to open the spot up on 47th, and the alderman over there is somebody that we directly supported for her candidateship, then we know they're going to answer our phone calls. I was at that meeting. Omar from A&O was at that meeting. It was a bunch of us, man. It was a real thing. It damn near seemed like some super underground railroad secretive. Like I felt like I was a part of the tribe. Like it was a thing, man. But it is, man. Like we're talking about, you got to separate the three elements. There's the social element, which is what I want to do personally, how I want to feel, who I want to be around, right? There's the political element. I mean, there's the economic element of how much. I mean, Sean's in Renaissance at Renaissance, right? 47th Street has a very different economic demographic than 55th Street or 53rd Street, and they're not even a whole mile apart, right? So there is an economic aspect of this, but there's also the political piece, and I think that throwing shout out to Hoover and Jeff Fort, they mobilized the support that they had to help support specific candidates to get the Harold Washington's elected mayors. And that's something that you gotta address.
Yeah, so let's get that set up and planned again, because now it's different time. So now I'm going to go to what Mike said. Here at Persona, what we're doing and what we want to have implemented, Mike, is, you guys know the sanitizers, the way you can just stick your hand up under and it shoots the sanitizer out. We're planning on putting 8-9 of those up around the building. Touchless security check, so the wands, disposable cups, so not our normal cups that we just wash and serve again. So disposable cups, our bartenders and what have you wearing masks, etc., etc. The electronic temperature at the door. So yes, I mean that's one of our daily conversations: is how do we make our customers feel safe? How do we remain safe when this thing opens back up, etc.? So, like I said, we will be implementing many steps to when this thing opens back up to ensure safety and doing some of those things as well here at Persona.
Okay. What'd you say?
Really in a minute.
Sean, I don't know if you wanted to chime in or anything.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, because I'm having problems hearing you all. You're going in and out. I keep getting phone calls. I can't get it right.
Is that no?
So you probably can hear me. I can't hear you.
Yeah, we
Some
can.
of it's broken up.
We can hear you.
You're a popular man.
Okay. What's the question?
Can you hear me?
Who can you hear? Who can you hear?
What's the question?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
It's bad. I can hear whoever said that. I can hear that. Yeah.
John, we can hear you.
Okay.
So the question is,
I just didn't hear the last thing. Whatever anyone said, I can't hear. I couldn't hear what the last question was. Whatever
we're talking
was
specifically about public health and what are you doing? What new practices are you implementing in your venues when things are opening back up?
Oh, like I said earlier, the one good thing about us is that we will have the patio open, so that gives us an opportunity to have people out in an open door environment or outdoor environment. Oh man, hold on 1 second.
Somebody's while you're thinking through, somebody's asking about will you require your patrons to wear a mask? I think that's a good question. So I'm currently down here quarantining. Go ahead.
Yeah, we would require our patrons to wear masks. I mean, you would want that. Our employees would wear masks. It's the same thing. Like I said, we opened up a restaurant recently, and all of our employees here wear masks, and everybody that comes in here wear masks. So that's not a strange thing anymore. It's just a common thing. I was getting out of my car early today, and sometimes like when you're thinking in your mind like, did I leave my keys? Or leave my phone in the car or something like that? I have to turn around and say, oops, I left my mask. So it's like now it's a common thing now.
Yeah.
So
the new normal. The new
definitely
normal.
that. Hand sanitizer everywhere. One good thing about the hand sanitizer situation, I just recently purchased cases of hand sanitizers from Luster Products. Luster Products, a black-owned business. And I know it's kind of hard now getting hand sanitizer, but here's a way we can help other black businesses. Go out and buy cases of hand sanitizers from businesses like Luster Products, who are making sanitizer now other than just hair products. So
I saw shout out to Frontier specifically. I worked with them a couple of times through everything that's going on. I think they are being very kind of innovative. They went from being obviously everybody has to be innovative during this time if you want to figure out how to stay open, but they started basically figuring out how do you put together the restaurant experience and a to-go kit. So now maybe it's a margarita kit to go with tacos. So you get tacos, maybe it's brisket tacos, but you get like a margarita kit that you get as an add-on. So I think that was pretty innovative and like it kind of made people think on their feet. So I'm wondering, like, are you guys interested in doing anything like that? Or I've seen other people like venues. They say, hey, if you $50 gift card, it will get you X, Y, and Z when things reopen. I think
the thing, Mike, about that is that from a restaurant, specifically a restaurant standpoint, you're at a heavy disadvantage because you have to actually order that stuff in advance before you have the sale, right? So you have to order the meat for the tacos, the shells, the lettuce, and all that. And if you don't get the sales, that's going to spoil it. And you got to make sure that you have the labor in-house to prep all of that and get all that ready. So it's challenging. It's challenging. I agree that innovation is clearly where we're at. There's no way to live if you're not innovating in times of crisis, right? I don't know that there is one way to do it either. To Sean's point, we have a patio also. And so we have a little bit more freedom to do certain things simply because we have an outdoor space, right? There are other spaces. You talked about Subterranean. Gomez and I are on a committee with the city of Chicago. He owns Subterranean and Beat Kitchen. And something that he pointed out, man, that I had not personally really tuned into that changed my viewpoint of some of this is that he qualified for the, the PPA or the PPU or whatever that
PPP.
He qualified for that, right? but he spoke directly about the fact that if he were to take that money, he would have to actually have active work for those employees. Now, even if he decided to do these mixed cocktail, because you can't actually get the liquor out, you can only do like the chartreuse and the lime juice. You can only do like the package, and then they get their own liquor, right? Even if he decided to do that, his challenge was based on that the parameters of that loan, he would have to make sure that he was using it properly, right? If he's flagged for any reason for using that improperly, he is now on the hook for that loan repayment in a short window. On top of that, he would be asking his staff to come off of unemployment to then receive these wages to do this 10% volume stuff. The second part of that is, as a person who filed for unemployment, was getting unemployment, and then made a mistake on one of them damn check boxes, you ain't getting nobody on the phone. If you're not getting money right now from the state, it's curtains for your ass. They not giving it out. They not answering the phone. Ain't no queue system. You will be the 300th call we answer. Curtains, curtains, curtains. So as a responsible business owner, he was like, I can't take the loan. Now, the challenge, of course, is that means he's at high risk of closing his business. You see what I'm saying? So like, this is not a easy one thing. There's a lot of small nuances, venue to venue, you know, neighborhood to neighborhood, market to market. Everything has something a little different that can drastically change everything. But yeah, from a cleanliness standpoint, I mean, the week of St. Patrick's Day, I can't remember the event we had, but we had an event. Oh, Afro Soca Love. And this is a brother who does national promotions. It's one of our best parties every year. It's just a great party. Shout out to my man Myron. But that was that weekend, and we were getting all this information, and it was like, all right, well, they haven't told us we can't do the event. And we had like 400 tickets sold already. So we were already hearing about this capacity thing, and we're like, man, do we cut off ticket sales? What do we do, right? So we end up doing a party, right? And one of the most interesting parts about that is, as I got to work that day, I was like, you know what? I haven't been asked to do this, but I know it makes sense. Man, I took a solution of bleach and hot water in a spray bottle and 2 rags, and I wiped down every handrail, every door handle, bathroom wall. I wiped down anything that looked like it had a smudge on it. It took me 2 hours to do this, right? But what I remember most is that when we actually opened doors, people noticed. People were like, oh, 1, they could smell the bleach, but 2, they could see that it was clean. So I think it is important it's going to take a lot more time than it used to, because you have to make sure that you're doing a full job. The half-ass job ain't going to get it. And yeah, you're at the risk again. I'm sure Sean can attest to this. I'm sure Charles can attest to this. If one of the conversations we had was, if the contact tracing traces somebody back to a Promontory event, are we on the hook for that?
You can get sued.
Right? Like is it because we didn't clean right, no matter what we did or what we didn't? So like, there's a lot of nuance in this, man. So you got to be, cleanliness is next to godliness, I guess. But from a business perspective, you got to protect yourself and you got to protect your employees. You can't overlook the fact that you have a staff that you are responsible for. And if you're not looking out for their best interests, white, black, green, or indifferent, then, you probably shouldn't be in this game, real talk.
Now, hey, I have one thing to just piggyback off of what Kende said. I'm going to leave it at that. When it comes to that PPP and these loans and these grants, that's one thing that us as a community don't understand. If you can get a PPP grant or this grant or this grant, figure it out. Because trust me, There's a lot of companies and a lot of businesses out here that don't deserve it, that's going to get that
They
money
got it.
that's given
They
to
got it.
and they're going to figure it out. Figure it the hell out. Get that money and figure it out. I'm not going to go any further.
But since we're talking about PPP, I'll throw that out there. I know for a lot of people, the issue with even getting the application in and was an issue to begin with for a lot of people that I talked to. So I know having a banker, like when people line up what they have, attorney, everything else that you're supposed to have, banker usually is like on the back end of things. And I think you should be just as tight with your banker and the bank that you are at, like as you would with your attorney or anybody else that's dealing with your money. So, shout out to Carl Riley at Fifth Third. I know that he like busts his ass for weeks pumping out PPP applications and things, making sure all the small businesses that are worked through his bank got loans. And I don't think people thought about that when they just open up a account at a bank. It's not just opening up an account. You need to have somebody that has your back, that's going to walk you through this, that's going to tell you, what you need to do. Don't put that. Check this box instead, because like McKenday said, you checked the wrong box, you asked out. Like, you might as well, it's over at that point.
That's another thing that, as I'm saying,
I don't think people thought about that when they just opened
that we're talking about with all of that where we all take stuff to.
Hey, hold on, Charles. There's like a delay on
Yeah, it's like a delay.
Check this box.
I hear it now.
Like McKenna say, you checked the wrong box.
I don't know what's going on. It's like it's repeating or something.
I was saying somebody mute. It might be feedback from somebody. Mute your phone.
Yeah, everybody mute their screens real quick.
Sean,
Okay.
Hit yours, Mike.
All right. So, everybody's still here, like tuned in. If you have any more questions, feel free to, I'm looking at the questions as they come in through the chat. But I think it is important. I want to touch on something really, really quick about McKenday and cleaning services. I mean, just a very simple idea. Every business right now should just be hand sanitizer, masks. You should have that stocked at your venue. If just like you can buy a bottle of water, I need to buy some more hand sanitizer. You need to be able to have that accessible. When you're thinking about, clubs or VIP, if you got one group that sat down and they, had some drinks, and you get another group, somebody need to be there right away, clean off their table, make sure that level of cleanliness is happening between every single group of patrons. You might even go as far as to say, I want to put in a vending machine, like I saw in Vegas. They're about to open up a vending machine selling masks and all those type of sanitary things. Maybe not that extreme, but at least if you have access to it and you selling it at your venue or you make it a resource, that's another thing to make sure that you're tackling on.
The one thing about masks that's difficult from a nightlife perspective is you got to think about it, man. Like honestly, we've all run a club, we've all done a party, and we've all had a fight. We back on the hold on. Okay. Yeah, we've all been in events where there's a situation and you got to go back on the cameras. And the hope in going back on the cameras is that you can identify the party and you can go through that. With masks up, that's challenging, bro. Like with a dark club, you got, even if you only got 25 people in there. So I think that in order to actually successfully, because I do agree that the science is obvious, masks prevent more than they don't, right? I think that's obvious. But that said, you're gonna have to come up with some other system. And what's crazy is now we're gonna get into personal liberties and the Constitution about your rights. When I was working at an advertising company for RJ Reynolds, I would go to clubs, give out free samples of cool cigarettes, right? But in order to get them, I had to prove your age, which meant I needed you to give me your ID, and I had to swipe your ID, and it would take all your information of your ID and put it in this little handheld computer device, right? So that we could be legally protected for giving you the cigarettes, right? Man, the type of pushback you get from people when you say, well, I need to scan your ID, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. What kind of super government state are we talking? Whoa, what you scan my ID for? That's against my right. So I'm just saying that, like, you're likely gonna have to do something of the sort in order to operate safely within this mass culture, because you can't see a person's face, man. And yeah, the wands is great and the weapons and all that, but at the end of the day, if something goes down, the police gonna call me and say, what happened at your spot while you were on duty? And when I go to that film and it's 27 people masked up, I'm gonna be like, I don't know, it was this dude in the yellow shirt. So there may be some additional mechanism that requires you to leave some information at the door, swipe, scan your ID, so that at the very least we know who's here, so that if something were to happen, we are not in the dark about what it is. And honestly, people are gonna be personal preference. I'm telling you straight up, bro. One, I'm older, but at the end of the day, that's too many steps for me. So in most cases, I'm just not gonna participate. I'm gonna just opt out. I'm gonna just stay at the crib. I'm just not gonna move around. So upon the people that are gonna wanna go out, the people that really are okay with going out, it's gonna be upon them to take that responsibility for that. You know, and I don't want to get so crazy as to say that you might have to sign a waiver. Like when you go to hot yoga, if you do yoga and you go to Bikram yoga and there's going to be 70,000 degrees in there, before you can take the class, you know what you got to do? Sign a waiver that says, I release all legal rights if something happens to me. Before you go play in a park gym for a pickup game, you got to sign a waiver. So it might be some shit like that. I hope it's not, but there are a lot of nuances to this, man.
Hey, and my Kende is 100% correct. When you speak on promoters and owners, your mindset is different. He's totally right. He is 110% right. Like, you will have so much pushback on people that don't want to do this, don't want to do that. And in a club, he is right. If there's a scuffle, a mask is something like on Halloween. Before you enter my doors, you have to take your mask off so my camera can see you first. Because if anything happens, I have to cover myself. I have to be like, okay, here's his face. You know, that's just true. And in this business, I deal with a lot of promoters. They look at things differently than an owner would, because I have to look at so many other things than you do. You look at the money, the bar ring, how many people I can get in here. I got to look at safety. I got to look at everything. So that's one of the things that Ron, Bobby, and myself have been talking about. No matter how we cut, slice, and dice it, this shit ain't gonna be the same until there's a shot or a pill that can cure it. Simple as that.
And half of them ain't gonna take that.
It's not going to be the same, no matter if it's 50 people, 100%, 75%. It's not going to be the same until you can take a pill and say, okay, now you're cured. So it is what it is. It's the ugly truth. You got some people that won't mind coming out, but as a club owner, are those the people I'm going to want here? That's number one. Number two is, yes, I have to make sure that my staff is masked up, sanitized up, do the proper measures. But how cool is it for me to ask everybody that comes in here to put on a mask? First of all, you're going to take the mask down 100 times just to have your drink. I mean, it's going to be a finicky subject, guys. But I take it back to the rule of thumb, and me and my wife fuss about this all the time. Wash your damn hands. Don't put your hands in your mouth, your eyes, and your nose. It's just like any other thing that we've been accustomed to for the longest when it comes to a cold, a flu, a virus. It's the biggest thing of coronavirus is it affects your lungs and your respiratory system. But I'm just using this as an example. My Kende can have it. I can shake his hand, hug his neck, whole 9 yards. As long as I don't put my hands in my face or my whatever, I'm not going to catch it. So it's using the rule of thumbs that's been around for 100 years when it comes to any type of virus, common cold, the flu, the pneumonia. Be safe and be sanitary, period.
Yeah, those are all good points. I know I'm gonna get a million questions for every event I'm doing. Like, what are the sanitary procedures? So I'm gonna have to, that I think I'm gonna have to set my game up in terms of, what things are looking like, what type of quality of experience I'm providing as well. So I know this is going on. Initially we was thinking an hour, but we had a lot to talk about.
McKinday said it.
Yeah, there's
Right.
no way. There's
So
no way. There's no way.
I think I'm gonna allow. We're gonna do a hard cut at 9, but then the next time, if there's probably a lot of things we still haven't touched on. But I really want to take this time, the last 15 minutes. Anybody that has any questions right now would be a good time to ask your questions so that we can, anything that you're thinking about, you feel like hasn't been addressed. I know somebody specifically asked, for example, let's say X promoter sells 500 tickets at the Promontory, but the Promontory capacity, Promontory is different because Promontory monitors the ticketing, right? But let's look at a venue that doesn't necessarily control or monitor the ticketing. Like, what process is going to be in place for X promoter that's selling these amount of tickets over the capacity that we're allowed to have? Like, how do you plan to navigate that particular scenario?
I think because I'm in that situation. Because if Mike Orie has a party, Mike Orie can sell 500 tickets or have 1,000 RSVPs, and it is what it is. It's communication, and if you have the communication and Mike Orie doesn't do what he's supposed to, excuse my language, but that's your ass, because I'm going to only let in what I'm supposed to. So if I tell Mike Orie ahead of time, all right, Mike, 150 people, and you sell 500 tickets, that's on you and your brand. So I think it's just communication, man. At the end of the day, it's just communication.
I mean, I agree with that. I was hoping Sean was going to jump in real quick though.
No, I say the same thing. You have to communicate with your promoter. Me myself, I don't have various outside promoters that I deal with. I have promoters that I deal with on a weekly basis, and we all look at it from a business standpoint as we're all in it together. So if the rule is XYZ number of people, then that's what it is. And the promoter on the backside don't sell over the tickets that we've allotted to sell. It's just communication is trust between the promoter and the owner.
I'm gonna say this, and this is really a suggestion, and this is an honest suggestion about what we already know we're gonna come into, right? So, Mike, you want to do an Afrotrak party on Friday? You definitely want to promote, for obvious reasons. You want to get as many people interested, because we all know it's the 100 people that don't get in that are the first to buy the tickets on your next event, right? If they stood outside and they saw that place was packed and everybody's on Instagram posting pictures and Facebook, that 100 people that never got in the party, that's your most valuable group of people, because they're going to promote for you for your next event, right? So this is what I'm going to say. This is my suggestion, flat out. I know I'm going to be at 50 capacity. Renaissance is going to be at 50 capacity. Persona is going to be at 50 capacity. Wish there was a Tantrum, a Delta, whatever. I'm going to say this. We should link in a way that says, all right, Mike, you can sell 75 tickets over here. You sell on the same night, same party, 75 tickets at Promontory, 50 tickets at Renaissance, whatever the ratio is, so that you should be able to promote. And this goes back to your point about how we can further work together versus, the competitive thing, right? But yeah, if you do one party and you promote something that gets 3,000 RSVPs and you book it at 4 different spaces, and all it has to be done is, if you bought the ticket from Promontory site, then you go into Promontory at that night. If you bought the ticket from Renaissance, you go into Renaissance on that night. You as the promoter, you still get your 500, 600, 700 people, and you spread it out through various different clubs, which could get real interesting on the qualitative tip, right? Like, you're going to have people start to saying, man, every time Mike put up a 50-person ticket party at Promontory, yeah, I really fucked with Renaissance though. Like, I really enjoyed the Renaissance. I didn't get the Promontory ticket, or I didn't get the Persona ticket, so I ended up at Renaissance, or vice versa. I didn't get the Renaissance ticket, so I ended up at Promontory. It's like, I think that that's a way to think of this creatively, because what we definitely know is that there are plenty of people in Chicago. There are plenty of people in Chicago who are going to be really excited to get back out and party. And so as a promoter, which I do empathize with y'all, right? You all only make money based on who comes. So I understand that sliding line of, if I stop promoting and then and it rains, then half the people that said they was coming on RSVPs ain't coming, right? So now you've invested all this money into marketing, talent, all that, and now you just ass out. You done paid the venue, whatever, right? So yeah, I think that's a potential approach. A potential approach, at least in the initial win, is to say a promoter should potentially book one event across venues, particularly in this, Black cultured space that we're talking about, so that the promoter's not lost, and so that for us as venues, again, I could do Mike Orie's, or we could flip it. I could do your party from 5 to 8 at Promontory, and then the next series of tickets is at Renaissance, and then the next series of tickets, Renaissance from 9 to 12, and then the next series of tickets is at Persona from 11 to 2. Like, that's what it's going to be. You can't, the capacity makes the business. We're not going to be in control of the capacity. Our only way around it is to identify how to use that to support each other, to keep each other operational, so that whenever Lori Lightfoot unlocks her Vice Lord grip and says, hey, you good, then we can go back to business as usual. You know what I'm saying? But I also think that will help promote that concept that we've been talking about this whole time.
FYI, I'm going to steal that idea from Kende. That's an awesome freaking idea. Hey, McKinday, I'm going to promote it as my own. But that's a great idea, bro. I literally got Sigma Chris here in Persona with me, and I just said, bro,
Big Chris,
Kende got a great idea on what y'all should do. So that's an awesome idea, bro.
McKinley is full of great ideas.
Chris better be 6 feet away.
Right.
But I think that's cool. I think that, like, basically a bar crawl every weekend. You throwing these 50-hour, 2-hour parties. You go here for 2 hours, you go to the next venue for 2 hours. Everybody's making sure everybody's eating. I think we're also going to see a shift in just higher quality experiences where you don't want everybody to be there. So I'm be like, okay, I'm only going to bring 50 people. It's going to be more of a carefully curated experience that I want 50 of the right people,
Look, I'm going to throw this in there too. I'm going to throw this in there. And this is specifically for Ashton because she's the only brand rep here, right? I know bottle service is like the big key, right? For party culture. You got bottle service, you either somebody or you got the money to look like you somebody, right? When you start looking at saying, well, this ticket is really a bottle service ticket, so you're going to need to be able to pay that price. And that's going to run out quick. 6 people, 4 sections, that's your capacity, right? So again, the ability to say, all right, well, we sold out here, but you can go to these other 5 or 6 spots and they still have a slot open. And to your point, Mike, about quality, look, man, let's be real. Everybody on this thread right here, right now, bro, we old, man. We've been in this for the business. We stopped enjoying this shit probably 10 years ago. Most of us work our asses off at the event. They see pictures of us with the celebrity or with the bottle, and it looks all cool and shit on Instagram. But in real life, I was working my ass off the whole time. I didn't enjoy not 1 minute of it, right? So to be real, my biggest hope is that, man, what would it be like to go to a club and I actually get to engage with 50 people? I ain't got to be standing at the bar that's got 3 rows of people wrapped around it, taking me 75 minutes to get a drink. I got to stand in line for all this, music crazy loud, this person over here wilding out. What is it like to actually say, now I'm at this social space And I now have enough space and a limited number of people that I can actually talk to. I can actually engage with. I think the quality is going to step way up. The quality is going to step way up if we do it right.
Yeah. Mike, you got any more questions? We want to try to get everybody that we can.
Yeah, real quick. So I got one question, and then we're gonna kind of like wrap up with next steps about, you know, how everybody can support and things like that. So Dorian Huff asked, you know, so for example, a lot of venues depend on paying bodies to be in the building to pay for the entertainment for the night. So what are the plans for compensating entertainment, DJs, bands, etc.? Does that change? I know I can speak on that really quick, Dorian, from like the live music space. Charles, you can mute your camera, mute your thing. So I know, you know, for example, like, you know, from the live music perspective, I'm typically working directly with different agents. And so, you know, when I book an artist, they automatically know how much money I'm going to make for, like, what's the amount of money I can gross. And they can say, based on the amount of money that you can gross, this is how much we think the rate should be. Or they may say, hey, we need X amount of tickets sold in this price range, put in an offer based upon that. So I think everybody's gonna have to adjust. You know, the DJs. I'm not saying that the club owners are gonna like be short DJs, but it's a real world. You got to understand that. Okay, it's 50 people here. We made 25% of the revenue that we normally make. Same thing with artists, like booking national acts. You know, we have to be creative, and the artists might have to do 2 or 3 intimate shows to equate to the amount of numbers that they would normally want to get for a show. But do you all want to speak on that specifically to venues? And, you know, really quickly, probably maybe 1 or 2 minutes total, and then we got to go on to something else. But talk about your perspective of how this comes.
One thing with
I think it's going to have to be more of an experience. Exactly what you just said. With the limited amount of people, it's going to have to be an experience for the amount of people that you can actually have in your venue. So that's one of the conversations that we've been speaking about. If that happens to be 50% of our occupancy, which is about 100, how do we make this the dopest it could be for just those 100 people? Whether it's a trapeze female from the ceiling, whether it's bottle service only, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to just have to be creative, man. And I don't know how that looks. It's something that we're figuring out. I'm sure we're going to get it done. I got a great team with me and around me. We're going to have to figure it out. But what we want is we want you to be able to kill to be them 100 that's able to get in on that Friday or that Saturday, because us as a company, we're going to make that night dope as fuck for you, period.
How do we, real quick, just to everybody kind of addressing this, how do we do this without, you know, Ivy was like the idea of pricing out certain people. And I understand that every experience ain't gonna be for everybody, but everybody ain't gonna be like, man, I can't pay $60 to get in here tonight or whatever. Like, I may only have.
Sean was about to speak, but my only quick answer
sometimes
to that
it is what it is, Mike. As a venue and an owner, if you ain't got $60, I damn near don't want you in here. And I'm not being arrogant. I'm not being an ass. I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, Kembe said this earlier. This is a large city. If you ain't got $50 or $60 to come to a club.
Hold on, Charles, but real quick, because that's
I don't know. I mean, if you guys feel different, let me know.
No, hold on, Charles. That's an important point. But Sean was about to say something, and we've been talking over Sean this whole time, so I want to make sure.
No, I was about to say that as a venue owner, knowing that the capacity is going to be lessened, what you want to do is you want to scale back on your staff. You want to scale back on security, your bartenders, the bar backs. If you have 50 people in there, you don't need 2 bar backs. You don't need 3 or 4 bartenders. So you scale back. Yeah, I wouldn't say cut back the money on the DJ. You just scale back, and then maybe you don't have the DJ the whole night.
My bad, about to go down.
Other type of music.
I'm gonna add one quick piece to that, which is to answer your question about equity, Mike, because that's a huge question.
Charles, put your thing on mute.
Huh? I'm on mute.
Charles, mute yourself. No, Charles needs to mute.
I'm gonna say this because that equity piece is huge. What we're talking about now is that if you ain't got the money, then you can't party at all because it's such a limited capacity, right? That's a very, very serious issue, especially in the community that we're talking about. My point again is to say, program in a way that you can identify floods. You have to limit. You're not doing one party on Friday anymore. You only got 50 people. One, it doesn't make financial sense from a business standpoint of the venue. And two, yeah, you're not going to sell enough liquor to
Charles,
cover the bills,
Charles,
etc.
mute your camera.
True.
Charles, mute your camera.
No, Charles, go on mute. You got too much background. There we go.
But he's smoking blunts and everything.
For real.
No, I'm not. I don't smoke. But
No. Super quick though. Super quick. I think it's important to not overlook that equity issue, because these people should also have access, just like they had prior, to come to the party. So I don't want to price gouge. I don't want to charge you $50 for a mask just because I require you to have a mask to be in the party. So I think that you're going to have to find marketing packages. We all have email lists. If Mike Orie's party at Promontory, there's a specific list of emails associated with the party that they did. He can actually select the 100 people to send that to first, give them 2 days. You got 48 hours to buy a ticket to this party next week. If you don't buy, we're going to go to the next 100 people. I think that things like that will help you keep that equity issue from getting out of whack. Because, yeah, otherwise, only the people with paper going to get to party, and that's fucked up.
I like that. Yeah,
And
I definitely like that, because that's one of the conversations that we're having. Like, I want, whenever we do open back up, if my occupancy is 100, I want 100 dope people in here. But as a business, I also want 100 people in here that's going to spend some money. Like, we can sugarcoat shit as much as we want to. I don't want to open for somebody that's going to come in here and buy one drink. I don't. Call me what you want. It is what it is. I mean,
Charles,
we having a candid conversation.
You're gonna have
Ashton
minimums,
don't
drink
want me to buy
minimums.
1 case of Remy. She want me to buy 30 cases a month.
All right, y'all.
Oh, but can I just throw something out there, Mike?
Yeah, real quick.
So one thing we've seen, especially with the whole versus battles and things like that, is that virtual, even though people will still want to get out and about and go into clubs, tying in virtual with some of these on-site events that we do might be the way that you get people that don't want to spend $60, don't want to do the drink minimum or hit whatever. You just say, hey, for $10, you can live stream this concert at Promontory from the comfort of your own home, and maybe you do something at home with 10 of your friends, and you guys have your little vibe. And Erykah Badu has shown that she did it with the dollar concerts. People are staying at home and having full events with these versus battles. I think digital will not totally go away, and that's a way to kind of integrate the two to still get the money that you need for your venue, pay the live artist, because the artist is not going to want to come out for less either. So you gotta think about that too. So, and then of course people like me and suppliers that you guys come to help support these events, we have to kind of figure out how that whole piece is going to look too.
It's not 100% true. Artists and agents are actually, at least the conversations I've been having, they're very clear that they're going to have to take less money.
Yeah.
What's the issue is more about the calendar. Like artists, agents, everybody clearly is like, look, we ain't been working, you ain't been working, we can't do nothing without each other. They know they're going to accept less money based on capacity shits in different city states. The issue is more about the calendar. The dates that they had prior booked, are those getting rebooked at the same companies? Like, that's more the issue right now with artists. Just to chime in.
And FYI, if anybody got an artist coming to the city, call Sandy. We're putting our artists at Sandy's hotels. Okay.
All right, y'all. We got to wrap up. I'm getting the bad signal to reel it in. So real quick, once again, my name is Mike Orie. You can follow me at Mike Orie, MikeOrie. You can follow Afrotrak, AFROTRAK. But before you all kind of leave, how can people support you right now? Is there any way that is there like a GoFundMe? Is there any sort of resources that you want to particularly push back to your business? And before you answer that, the goal is we're going to hopefully put this up on YouTube, maybe on SoundCloud for people to replay this. And then the next step is I'm hoping to have a conversation with the chief small business officer as well as the deputy officer of arts and cultural programming, both for the city of Chicago. So they can kind of talk about a different perspective of, we heard from the venue owners, but now we hear from the city of Chicago and what resources might be available for everybody that's struggling right now. Well, really quickly, if y'all want to shout out y'all Instagram accounts or how people can support you all right now during this time.
All right. I'll go first. Of course, is Persona Shy. Is our website, www.personashy.com. Persona Lounge on Instagram. Civilized Lifestyle, Civilized Empire, Lifestyle Official. I think our main thing is we're here. We're not going anywhere. God's been good to us. So when this stuff is over, we're going to open back up. We're going to be stronger than ever, I think. We have the support of a lot of people, and we are here for us. And once again, I'll say this in closing, let's set that meeting up with all of us. I mean, with whoever we need to. And like I said, I know somebody related to Teddy earlier. Let's set that back up. Now is the most important time for us to come together, figure out a strategy to where you're coming through one of us or you're not, period. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for the panel. I know everybody on here, you guys are great. We've all worked together. I couldn't, I'm totally blessed and honored, but we have to look out for each other or nobody else will.
I'll go real quick. I personally don't need any support. I'm doing all right. My main focus at this point is trying to figure out how to take care of my staff, man. I had a team of people that have been with us for 3, 4, 5 years, man. And just every now and then checking in with them, it's difficult for me to feel like I'm doing them any justice because there's only so much I can do. Whereas before I had actions, I could book something that was dope, they could make some tips or whatever. So Promontory does have a GoFundMe situation for our staff. We partnered with Ashton. Ashton has they recorded 5 craft cocktail videos that are going to be on Promontory's page that are done by Promontory bartenders. That menu we're distributing with Kimbark Liquors deliveries. So you can support us by just supporting those bartenders, supporting, that GoFundMe, and just show them some love, man. At the end of the day, just check in on them. If you've been to Promontory and you Serenity your people, or you know what I'm saying, Kayla was your people, man, just hit their Instagram and be like, yo, I fucks with you, but I can't wait to see you, because they really appreciate that. And I feel like that's what we're not doing right now.
Sean, what you got?
All right. For me, right now, the best way you can support me and my family is support our new restaurant that we have, Caribbean Jerk Joint, 47th and Lake Park. We got some good Caribbean jerk food over here. Going forward with the bars, Tantrum. Want to say right here, those that have attended Tantrum in the past, thank you for your support over the last 12 years. Please don't feel bad for us. We had a hell of a run, 12 years. It was great. It took something like this to finally shut us down. But we had a great 12-year run, and we appreciate everybody that supported us. Going forward, support us when we open back up over at Renaissance Bronzeville. Even if it's not, we as business owners, we're not going to make any money at the outset of this. But come support our bartenders, the people that work there, and tip them well, because it's going to be a limited capacity, and people are not in this industry. They're not going to make the money that they used to make. So let's help them out first, and in the long run, the owners or the establishments will make money. So just look out for the people that are working.
Ashton, you got any last words?
Yes, I want to just thank you, Mike, for putting this together. Thank you, gentlemen, for your insight. Everybody keep going to the liquor stores and getting your Remy and your Cointreau and all that other stuff, making your stuff at home. And while you do that, download my app, Tip Off. It's the word guessing game for the culture. So while you're at home with your loved ones or If you want to play it virtually, you can do that as well. So you can go, it's Tipoff, TIPOFF. You can get it on the App Store or the Google Store.
Yeah, definitely make sure y'all support Tip Off. I have to make sure that before we leave, I shout out to the Urban Key. Thank you to Urban Key for having us.
Urban Key. Yeah.
For those of you all don't know,
Hey, Alicia.
Alicia's the owner of the Urban Key. I know it's probably hard to let her baby over to somebody like me, making sure I did everything. She's still killing me because I'm over the time limit. However, the Urban Key is eventually going to, and it is an events platform for Black culture. So the goal and the aim for the Urban Key is to evolve to eventually a platform and a website where you can find out about all the happenings and things that are going on with Black culture. And, you know, obviously this happens, so events aren't happening. So this is their way of pivoting and talking to people about things that are going on. So make sure you follow the Urban Key on Instagram. And that's my time. I'm Mike Orie. I'm out. Appreciate y'all.
Mike, man. Appreciate you, man. Real quick, man.
Mike got some dope ideas coming
Yep.
up. Stay tuned.
Yep. Stay Black, y'all.
All right.
Later, guys. Peace.
Peace.